ornament I had prepared for, but haven't yet completed, is the reindeer. And the test was a disaster. So I'm going to take the strips that I've already prepared ahead of time and try again. This time, there's going to be a layer of Tack underneath the layer of brown. I also want to make lighter brown because the eyes and nose are not going to show up on this dark, dark brown. So I took a bunch of my little strips and prepared the pieces for another reindeer. So this is in 3/4 of an inch by 1 3/4. This is 3/4 by a touch over an inch. And these are about 1/4 of an inch. I wanted to go for 1/4 of an inch square. They're little rectangles because I didn't measure, I just clipped. Everything needs to be rounded. So I'm going to get the clipper and I'm going to round off the little feet, both the brown and the Tack. I'm going to round off the little body, both the brown and the Tack. And the head, I want it to be slightly more peanut shaped. So that's next. And I want the little hooves to be a little more hoof shaped. So I'm going to curve the top and leave the bottom flat. I'm not going to bother with ears, although I could, but I'm just not going to. I made the clear Tack slightly smaller so that it doesn't show on the edge. I will go back and touch up and trim if I need to. You'll notice the hoofs are not all the same. I like these two for the front, these two for the back. Next step, bending the wire to attach the little legs and bending the antlers and creating a hook. The legs I want all to be 1.5 inches. And because you want them to be even, this I will measure. Loving my Milwaukee Marksall, by the way. Works really well. On all the parts that I need measured. The only thing it does not work on, which I've said before, is if the glass is wet. It won't mark, it won't stay on wet glass, but it will mark dry glass and stay there as you put it through the process of cutting it. Alrighty, so now I need to make the loops on both ends. They don't have to be closed. I like whatever I do to be consistent. So you'll see all of these I've left fairly open. It doesn't matter how you do it. You just want to be consistent because you will be able to see this from the back of the ornament with the clear. So you're going to take your round nose pliers. Near the end, I don't need a large loop. I'm going to bend it all the way around until it touches. Take the plier out, put it back in, pinch, bend, so you end up with a straight loop with a pin. You're going to do that on both ends of all 4 of the legs. Flatten if needed. To make your antlers all very similar, there's a wonderful tool that you can bring in from jewelry making. Own it? Can't find it. Right now my creative space is a disaster. So I just made a new one. Pounded some nails through a piece of plywood that I found downstairs. And it'll do the same thing. It'll be a little bit harder to use, but it'll work. So I'm going to put the wire down, wrap it around the first nail, hold that wire tight, bring it up around the next, bring it around the third, pulling tight, And then you're just going to slide it off. Now my jewelry jig works perfectly. This one does not work as well, but it does work. And then you just pinch down the shapes. And as many as you need, you just run them through this little jig, and your antlers will all look pretty similar. Chrome wire is really tough on your tools, so I don't recommend using the same tools that you use for jewelry if you do jewelry making. I'd recommend a second set, but I don't do jewelry making anymore. You're going to bend it back. This is so that it will embed in the glass and will not be able to slide out. There you go. So my wire components are done, and antlers need to be trimmed down. And then you just need to decide, when you're looking at your deer, how big do you want your antlers to be? So I'm probably going to trim down to about there. And again, on the antlers, you're going to make loops because these are going to be embedded in the glass. These I think I'm going to do a little bit differently. I may just do one loop. I have to see how, yeah, I think I'm only going to do one loop. It will work the same way, but it won't put so much wire inside the deer. I have to decide which way do I want the little antlers to go. Second one. So the first one's going to be bent around, the second one is going to be straightened. And that way you can bury them between the two layers of glass without any of it poking out. It's always best to build right on your shelf. And I'm running out of thin fire. So now I'm going to start building on my shelf that I have kiln washed. So you just need to assemble all your pieces. Well, you need to line up all your pieces. So assembly will be a little bit easier. Oh, I have to get the dog out of here. There we go. Okay, so you're just going to glue each of the pieces in place, embedding your metal. Whoa, my glue's coming out really fast now. You could embed your metal bits lining everything up so that it looks the way you want it to. Now these do not need support because they're a bridge from one piece of glass to another piece of glass. When we get up to the antlers, we're going to have to put a little stack of fiber paper to hold the antlers in place. Otherwise, the weight of them will allow them to fall down and this part to work its way through the glass as it's melting. We're going to put the hook in at this point. I like to put it toward the head to keep it relatively balanced. The ornament is going to want to tip forward if you don't, because the head and the antlers are going to be much heavier than the back half of the reindeer. So you're going to put this really close to the neck of the deer. You're also going to want to support the head, because when you put it on, in order to get it to fuse together, you have to overlap, which is going to lay the head back. It will be fine when it's firing, but it will be more inclined to slide off. And you don't want that. So I'm going to use little stacks of fiber paper. And once you've got everything where you want it, you're going to go back with the brown glass and lay the brown glass over top of the wire. It will want to slide, so you're going to have to see where you need to support it with little stacks of fiber paper. And then you're going to put the head, put the antlers, and then you'll put the brown layer. That's the basic assembly. Very fiddly, a little bit tricky. And then you need to go back and adjust and adjust and adjust to make sure it's just the way you want it. Let it dry before you put it in the kiln. First step is full fuse, and then after it comes out, we'll put its little red nose, its little black eyes, and then we'll put it back in for a tack fuse. This great piece of fiber was actually packing when I bought stringers. They put these in so that the stringers would be shipped carefully without getting damaged. So here it is out of the kiln. I may trim this little part off because it bulged a little bit there. Next step, I need to make some eyes and a nose and then run it for a tack fuse. So I'm going to take these, cut them into little tiny squares, and then I'm going to put a piece of black stringer on each of them and run them as a fit ball and see if I can make them look like little eyes. So I'm getting ready to put this back in, and because I had propped it up too high, it actually needs a little more glass there for the tack fuse. So I cut out a piece of glass. I'm going to put that in, and then it'll fill that area out. And I got two little frit balls that made beautiful eyes, little red nose. I'm going to prop it with the antlers down so that it flattens out a little bit more, and hopefully will resolve that issue I caused. And here it is, out of the kiln. Not cleaned up yet, but I love it.